relative supply and the relative demand curve under free trade. But before than that, uh, we need to define what absolute advantage and comparative advantage is. We've already defined that in the earlier recordings. Let us define it once more. So absolute advantage. Absolute advantage. Well, if there is a country and which is going to require less amount of less amount of units in order to produce a particular good, then that country has an absolute advantage in that. Right. For example, if a country requires less amount of labor to produce a good, it has an absolute advantage in that particular good, right? Than the other country. So please write this. If a country requires less amount of labor to produce a good, then such a country has an absolute advantage in the production of that. Then it has an absolute advantage over the other country. Over the other country. So if we say that ALC is less than ALC star, that is the unit labor requirement in order to produce 1 unit of cloth in home country is less than the unit labor requirement to produce 1 unit of cloth in the foreign country, then home has the absolute advantage in the production of cloth. So wherever I'm going to use star, that means foreign, right? And ALW less than ALW star. That is the unit labor requirement in the production of wine in order to produce 1 unit of wine in home is less than the unit labor requirement in order to produce 1 unit of wine in foreign. So here we are assuming that uh, home country has an absolute advantage in both cloth and wine, right? Cloth and wine or cheese and wine. So home country has an absolute advantage in the production of both cheese and wine. In the production of both cheese and wine. So this is what absolute advantage is, right? This guy is what absolute advantage is. What is comparative advantage? So if I have the lower opportunity cost in the production of cheese as compared to the foreign country, then I have a comparative advantage. So it's not about the unit labor requirements, it's about the opportunity cost. So if my opportunity cost in the production of cheese is lower than the opportunity cost in the production of cheese in the foreign country, then the home country has the comparative advantage in the production of cheese, right? Home has a comparative advantage in the production of cheese, right? If the opportunity cost of producing cheese, ALC by ALW, is less than ALC star by less than ALW, is less than ALC star by ALW star. So the opportunity cost of cheese is less in home, is less in home, right, as compared to the other. As compared to foreign. As compared to foreign. So that is what the comparative advantage is, right? We have already seen the case of the relative supply and the relative demand curves in the Otaki equilibrium, right? So we have seen that, and we know this, that since there is a perfect competition in the labor market, so the wages would be equal to the value of the marginal product. So I gave you the different logic. Your PC is equal to WC into ALC, or you can also write that wages, you will, I mean, a firm will be employing labor up to the point where the wages are going to be equal to the value of the marginal product, right? So you can also write it this way, that due to perfect competition, due to perfect competition, in the labor market, wages in the cheese industry would be equal to the value of marginal product of labor in the cheese industry. So what is the value of marginal product of labor? Price of cheese into MPL. Price of cheese into MPLC. But MPLC is what? 1 upon ALC, right? MPLG is what? 1 upon ALC. That is, MPL is telling you, if you employ 1 more unit of labor, how many more units you can produce, right? In order to produce, and this is telling you, what is ALC telling you? ALC is telling you the unit labor requirement. In order to produce 1 more unit of cheese, how many labor is going to be required, right? Okay, and similarly, WW is equal to PW upon ALW. Similarly, WW is equal to PW upon ALW. Okay. Now let us talk about, and we know this, beta, that you have there is now a trade. So there is a foreign country as well, right? So we will write the world relative supply curve. World relative supply curve. So the world relative supply curve is the quantity of cheese supplied by all countries, that is home country and the foreign country, upon the quantity of quantity of wine supplied by all countries. That is home plus foreign. That is the world relative supply curve. So the relative supply and at each relative price of the cheese, that is PC by PW. So given PC by PW, what is the quantity supplied of cheese by home plus quantity supplied of cheese by foreign upon quantities supplied of wine by home plus quantity supplied of wine by W stars. That is, at each PC by PW, what is the relative supply? So this is the total supply of cheese in the world market by home and foreign together. This is the total supply of wine in the world market by home and foreign, right? So you have different cases out here. Case one. And beta, we have also assumed that home has a comparative advantage in the cheese production. So ALC by ALW is less than ALC star upon ALW star. So we know this, right? So this is what my assumption is. This is what my assumption is. So the first case which I will take is that if PC by PW is less than ALC by ALW. If PC by PW is less than ALC by ALW, right? Then what happens? Let me just put this here. This is the QC plus QC star whole upon QW plus QW star. This is PC by PW. And here you have ALC star upon ALW star. And here you have ALC upon ALW. Now think about it. If PC by PW is less than ALC by ALW, then naturally it is less than ALC star by ALW star as well. Naturally, it is going to be less than ALC star by ALW star, right? So in home, since PC by PW is less than ALC by ALW, home is going to produce only wine. Just think about it. The relative price of cheese is less than the opportunity cost of cheese. In very simple terms, price is less than the cost. Why will you produce such a commodity? You won't. You will produce the other commodity. Foreign, if PC by PW is less than ALC by ALW and ALC by ALW is less than ALC star by ALW star, then it has to be less than. So here also, the relative price of cheese is less than the opportunity cost of producing cheese in foreign. So foreign will also be producing only wine. Right? Foreign will also be producing only wine. So there is no cheese production here. No cheese production out here, right? No cheese production. So if there is no cheese production, you are sitting at OE. That is, let me just call this point as A, and I am here. Mhm. So this is that part of the relative supply curve, OA. That is case 1. Mhm. Case 2. Case 2. If PC by PW is equal to ALC by ALW. But if PC by PW is equal to ALC by ALW and ALC by ALW is less than ALC star by ALW star, so this definitely implies that PC by PW is still less than ALC star by ALW star. It is less than ALC star by ALW star. So as far as home is concerned, home country is indifferent between producing wine and cheese, right? As far as foreign country is concerned, foreign country will still be producing all wine. Foreign country will still be producing all wine, right? Foreign country will still be producing all wine. So you can be between, let's say, point A. If what do you call, foreign country is still going to produce all wine, you will still be at point A, definitely. And home is indifferent between producing wine and cheese. And home is also producing, let's say, all wine, then you are definitely at point A, right? But supposedly, if home produces cheese, home produces cheese also, and foreign is, of course, not going to produce cheese. Foreign is not going to produce cheese at all. So let's say the maximum amount of cheese which the home can produce is QC. And foreign is producing just all wine. So this is what QC by QW star is. Listen to me again. Listen to me again. So when will you be at point A? Home is indifferent between producing cheese and wine. So foreign is definitely going to produce wine only. So foreign is producing wine here. Home is also producing wine. You are here at point A. Home can also produce all wine here also. But supposedly home produces all cheese and foreign is still producing all wine. Foreign has to produce all wine in this case. It doesn't have a choice. So in this QC plus QC star, how we are getting this? You have QC plus QC star upon QW plus QW star. So this point you are getting when foreign is not producing cheese at all, QC star is 0. And this point you're getting when home is not producing wine at all, this point. So the relative supply of cheese is what in this market, in the world, is QC by QW star. So this is what you have. Home can also produce something in between as well, right? So if it produces only cheese, if it produces so if home is going to produce only wine, we are at point A. If home produces only cheese, we are at point B, right? So you might write that point also. If home produces only wine, foreign is definitely producing wine. Foreign doesn't have a choice. If home produces only wine, we are at A. If home produces only cheese, we are at B. Guys, I'm again telling you, foreign is only going to produce wine, right? So if home is also going to produce wine, you're going to be here. You're not producing anything of cheese. But if home produces cheese, you are here. You can have some convex combination of wine and cheese also out here. Okay. This was your case 2. Case 3. Right. Now, the relative price of cheese is greater than the opportunity cost of cheese in the home country. But the relative price of cheese is still not greater than the opportunity cost of cheese in the foreign country. Right? That is case 3. Relative price of cheese is greater than the opportunity cost of cheese in the home country. But relative price of cheese is less than the opportunity cost of cheese in the foreign country. So you have the home country. And you have the foreign country. So if relative price of cheese is more than the opportunity cost of cheese, you'll say, fine, home is going to produce only cheese. No? Home is going to produce only cheese. And if the relative price of cheese is less than the opportunity cost of cheese, foreign will say, why will I produce cheese? Relative price is lesser, I will produce only wine. Foreign is going to produce only wine, right? So there is, in this case, this is the first case where you have the complete specialization. This is the first case where you have the complete specialization, right? With respect to comparative advantage. So home has the comparative advantage in cheese, and this guy, foreign, has a comparative advantage in wine, right? And home has a comparative advantage in cheese, and the foreign has the comparative advantage in wine, right? Well, we are at where? We are at BC. We are at BC. So home is only because beta PC by PW is lying here now. PC by PW is, don't mark this, PC by PW is lying here. So it is greater than your ALC by ALW, but less than ALC star by ALW star. So for all of these, this is going to be the case. For all of these prices, this is going to be the case. This is your third case. When PC by PW is going to lie here, then home country is going to produce only cheese and foreign country is going to produce only wine. So you are here. Okay. fourth. Case 4. If PC by PW is equal to ALC star by ALW star, right? So the moment PC by PW is equal to ALC star by ALW star, so definitely it is greater than ALC by ALW. So PC by PW is definitely greater than ALC by ALW. Because what? Because ALC is less than ALW star. Guys, you are saying ALC by ALW is less than ALC star by ALW star. So if PC by PW is going to be equal to this, so definitely it is greater than ALC by ALW. Huh? It's going to be greater than ALC by ALW. So what is going to happen in the foreign country and what is going to happen in the home country? So foreign country is indifferent between producing wine and cheese now. Because the relative price is same, equal to the opportunity cost of cheese. But here relative price of cheese is greater than the opportunity cost of cheese. So home country will be producing only cheese. Right? Home country will be producing only cheese. Right? Foreign is indifferent between cheese and wine, and home country is going to produce only cheese. So just think about it. I will also write it this way. So if I'm talking about the foreign country here, right? If foreign produces both, then relative supply is what? QC plus QC star. Home country is only going to produce QC. Then this is going to be the relative supply, QW star. And we are beyond point C. And we are beyond point C, right? If foreign produces only wine, then it is simple. You are at C. Because home country is going to produce just QC, foreign country is going to produce QW star. And we are at C, right? And if foreign country produces, right? If foreign country produces only cheese, then this is going to be what? Foreign. Neither home is producing wine nor foreign is producing wine. So this is going to be infinity. relative supply curve is infinity out here. Relative supply curve is infinity out here. So for example, you have a curve like this. You have a curve like this. You with me? You have a curve like this out here. And the last case is simple. If PC by PW is equal to ALC by ALW star, you can be here at this orange part. But if PC by PW is going to be greater than ALC star by ALW star, then it is definitely greater than ALC by ALW also. So relative price of cheese is greater than the opportunity cost of cheese in foreign. So foreign will be producing only cheese. Relative price of cheese is naturally greater than ALC by ALW. There is opportunity cost of cheese in the home. Home will also be producing only cheese, right? Home will also be producing only cheese. Case 5. If PC by PW is greater than ALC star by ALW star, then it is definitely greater than ALC by ALW also, because ALC is less than ALC. ALC by ALW is less than ALC star by ALW star. Right? If this is the case, then both home and the foreign country produces wine. No, produces cheese. Why wine? Produces cheese. Right. So opportunity cost of cheese, relative price of cheese is greater than the opportunity cost of cheese. It will be producing only cheese, right? And RS is infinite. Is infinite. RS is infinite. Right. So this is the way you will draw the relative supply curve of the world relative supply curve. This is the way you will be drawing. And how do you write the world relative demand curve? So at every PC by PW, there will be the relative demand for cheese also, which is QC by QC plus QC star upon QW plus QW star, right? So and we will be assuming that you will have a downward sloping relative demand curve, right? So downward sloping relative demand curve is actually implying the substitution effect, right? It is reflecting the substitution effect that if PC by PW is going to increase, it means relatively cheese has become expensive. So when relatively cheese has become expensive, you will be consuming less of cheese. You should be consuming less of cheese. So that means the relative demand curve is downward sloping. So you can straight away have a demand curve, let's say like this. Which demand curve? So you have like this as the demand curve. So this is what my relative demand curve is. Relative demand curve. So as PC by PW is going to increase, substitution effect will say relatively cheese has become expensive. You should be consuming less of it. That is the reason you have the downward sloping relative demand curve. And the equilibrium price of cheese and what do you call cheese and wine, equilibrium relative price of cheese and wine is shown by the intersection of the demand curves and the relative demand curve and the relative supply curve. That is here. at this point. This is the equilibrium relative price of cheese and wine. That is PC by PW star. So this I call this as E. This point where they are intersecting, this is what E is. So in this recording, we have learned how do you define the absolute advantage and comparative advantage, and how do you derive the relative supply curve, what is the relative demand curve, and how do you get the intersection, how do you get the equilibrium relative price, right? We'll take the discussion further in the next class. Thank you, Bhutan.